There is a mighty power in the words we speak. Words are not merely sounds. They are the creative tools of spirit, shaping our world moment by moment. The subconscious mind receives every word as a command, and the universe, forever obedient, begins to arrange circumstances accordingly. When we speak deliberately, with divine intention, we harness the law of attraction, the law of prosperity, and the law of love, setting them all in motion on our behalf. When you say something every hour, when you affirm a truth persistently, you impress the subconscious mind with unwavering certainty. Spoken law, the repetition builds faith. Faith is not something far off or elusive. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. When faith and word align, miracles follow. What you declare with conviction becomes your reality. Most people speak carelessly. They say things like, "I through spoken law. I can't afford that. Things never work out for me. I'm always tired." Or, "This always happens to me." And so the law, spoken law, impartial and exact, says, "So be it." The outer world simply reflects the inner conversation. But when you wake up to your power, but through spoken law, when you realize your word is your wand, you begin to speak with purpose, knowing that every word plants a seed in the garden of your experience, but through spoken law. To say something every hour is to discipline your thought and speech. It is to reprogram the inner patterns that have perhaps run wild for years. It is to declaring, "I am in control of my life. I align with divine order. I speak only that which I desire to see. If you want health, say it every hour. Divine health flows through me now. If you desire abundance, declare, God is my instant, constant, and lavish supply. If peace is your aim, affirm, I dwell in the secret place of the Most High, through spoken law, and no harm shall come near me." It is not enough to say these words once in the morning and forget them. The world is full of distractions, and the old thought forms are strong. But when you speak truth every hour, you renew the mind. You create a new rhythm in consciousness. You drown out the noise of doubt and fear. You rise into alignment with the infinite. Say it aloud, whisper it, write it, feel it. Let the words become the breath of your spirit. And as you do, watch your life transform. Watch doors open. Watch the crooked places made straight. Watch as people, resources, and opportunities are magnetized to you, drawn not by effort, but by the vibration of truth sustained. But through spoken law, you need not beg or plead. You need only speak, believe, and receive. The infinite intelligence knows your name. It knows what you need before you ask. But it waits for your permission, your word, your vibration of readiness. And when you speak in harmony with divine law, hour after hour, day after day, but through spoken law, you become a living example of heaven on earth. Your word is your creative power. Every syllable you speak carries with it the force of vibration, intention, and spiritual authority. When you speak, but through spoken law, you are not simply passing time or expressing thoughts. You are casting the substance of your world into form. The invisible realm responds not to logic or effort, but to the quality and certainty of your spoken word. But through spoken law, words are the bridge between the inner and outer worlds. They are the mechanism by which ideas move from the abstract into the material. But through spoken law, the ancient law is simple: what you declare becomes law in your life. Your word sets forth energy in motion through spoken law, and that energy obeys the spiritual laws that govern all creation. You may have noticed that things people say repeatedly tend to come to pass through spoken law. This is not coincidence. The subconscious mind, which shapes much of our reality behind the scenes, is highly impressionable. It does not differentiate between jokes, sarcasm, or idle talk. It hears and accepts what is spoken most often, especially when said with emotion, and sets out to manifest accordingly. If someone constantly says, "I never get a break," the subconscious mind takes that as a command and sees to it that opportunities continue to slip away. If a person says, spoken law, "I always attract the right people at the right time," their experience begins to reflect that belief. The spoken word is like a seed, but through spoken law, and each seed contains the germ of the full-grown plant. Just as an acorn already holds the blueprint of the oak tree, your words hold the blueprint of your experience. Once spoken, that seed is planted in the soil of the subconscious. It will take root, sprout, and grow, unless it is uprooted by contrary words or beliefs. This is why casual speech is so dangerous for the unaware and so powerful for the awakened. But through spoken law, when you become conscious of the creative power of your word, you no longer say things you do not mean. You stop using phrases like, "This is killing me," or "I'm sick and tired," or "Nothing ever works out." You begin to realize that every word spoken in frustration or fear carries a vibratory weight and becomes a silent decree. And the law never sleeps. It is always recording, always acting. The word is not only a tool, it is a force of nature. Just as gravity governs physical form, the law of the spoken word governs spiritual form. It is written, "In the beginning was the Word," and this is not merely poetic. It is literal. All creation began with the utterance of divine intention. When you speak, you echo that same power. You are not separate from the source. You are an extension of it, endowed with the same ability to call forth that which is unseen into the realm of the seen. To say, "I am," followed by a declaration, through spoken law, is to invoke divine energy. The words "I am" are sacred because they are the name of the infinite expressed through the individual. Through spoken law, when you say, "I am strong, I am whole, I am free," you are not hoping, you are claiming. But through spoken law, you are stamping a vibration upon your consciousness that will shape the next hour, the next day, the next season. It is not enough to think good thoughts alone. Thought is the blueprint, but word is the command. The universe may recognize your intention through spoken law, but it responds with precision to your verbal affirmation. Many people struggle in silence, wondering why their prayers go unanswered through spoken law, yet they undo their own intentions by speaking against them. They ask for prosperity but then speak of lack. They affirm healing but constantly talk about symptoms. They say, "I want love," and then declare, "Spoken law, people always let me down." These contradictions send mixed messages to the subconscious, which then mirrors back chaos and confusion. Through spoken law, there must be clarity in the spoken word. It must align with the desire, and it must be consistent. To understand your word as creative power is to take full responsibility for your life. It means no longer blaming outer conditions for inner experience. But through spoken law, you begin to see that your circumstances are the result of accumulated speech. Yours and sometimes the words of others you've accepted as truth. But the moment you decide to speak differently, everything begins to shift. Power returns to you. Spoken law, you no longer feel like a victim of fate or random events. You recognize that your word is a magic wand, but through spoken law. And whatever you point it toward will begin to move, rearrange, and take form. This is not about positive thinking for its own sake. Through spoken law, it is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about understanding that the power of word is greater than appearance. But through spoken law, you may be surrounded by lack, but when you declare, "There is divine abundance all around me," you are planting new seeds. Those seeds, spoken law, when nourished with belief and repetition, will push through the hard ground of past thought and begin to yield fruit. You speak what you wish to grow, not what you see fading. You do not speak about the illness, the debt, or the betrayal. You speak the truth behind the illusion. You say, "I am guided, I am supported, I am provided for," and the universe hears. Faith-filled speech overrides fear-based conditions. When you speak with authority and conviction, mountains move. Not because you are powerful in ego, through spoken law, but because you are aligning with divine laws that govern creation. Through spoken law, there is no condition too fixed that it cannot be shifted by the spoken word of truth. There is no habit too ingrained that it cannot be reversed by the consistent declaration of spiritual reality. What you speak, you shape. What you affirm, through spoken law, you form. And so you learn to guard your tongue, not with fear, but with reverence. You watch your words the way a gardener watches for weeds. You do not allow complaints, gossip, or judgment to pass your lips, but through spoken law, because you know these things do not just affect others, they shape your own atmosphere. Through spoken law, you understand that your environment is a reflection of the vibration you have sustained with your words, and so you speak light. You speak peace, but through spoken law, you speak blessing even when the outer world seems dark. Because you know the word is not dependent on conditions. It changes them, but through spoken law. When you understand the creative power of your word, you no longer wait for things to change before you speak differently. You speak differently first, in spoken law. You declare what in spirit, even when it seems false in form. You do not wait for the feeling to come. You speak until it does. You do not wait for the evidence. You call it in with your word. The word goes before you. It prepares the path. It clears the way, but through spoken law. It magnetizes the right people, the right opportunities, and the right experiences to match the frequency you have chosen. But through spoken law, your life is a mirror of your words. If you want to know what you've been affirming, look around. If you don't like what you see, begin to speak something new. There is no shame in having spoken without awareness. But now you know. Now you see that the word is not small. It is not idle. It is the instrument by which you conduct the music of your life. Repetition builds faith and reprograms the subconscious. The subconscious mind is the hidden builder of your life. It does not argue, reason, or analyze. It simply accepts what it is told, especially what it is told over and over again. Repetition is the language the subconscious understands. One powerful statement, said once, may pass unnoticed. But when it is said 100 times with sincerity, it begins to penetrate. It becomes a command, not a suggestion. Faith is not always instant. It grows, and repetition is how it is cultivated, just as water wears down stone. Persistent affirmation breaks through layers of old belief. Many people think faith is an emotion or a gift granted to the few. But faith is truly the result of deep inner conviction, built word by word, thought by thought, hour by hour, but through spoken law. Repetition is the chisel that carves belief into the heart of your being. In the realm of spirit, belief is the currency of manifestation. But through spoken law, what do you believe you experience? But belief is not formed by accident. It is formed through the constant repetition of thought and word. If you grew up hearing, money is hard to come by, that idea may have rooted deeply in your subconscious. But that belief can be replaced. It is not permanent. When you begin to say, money flows to me freely and abundantly, it may feel strange at first, but with repetition, the strangeness fades. With enough repetition, it begins to feel natural. And when it feels natural, it becomes real. This is why affirmations are not to be spoken once and forgotten. They are to be spoken again and again, not as a ritual, but as a reprogramming. The mind must be trained. Just as a musician repeats scales or an athlete practices form, the spiritual aspirant repeats truth. Not because it is not already true, but because it must become true in consciousness. The truth must be accepted in the subconscious before it can express in the outer world. The old patterns of doubt, fear, and limitation were built through years of repetition. Every time you said, through spoken law, I can't, I'm afraid, or that's not for me, you deepened the groove. The subconscious took that as law. It acted accordingly through spoken law, shaping your reality to reflect what it was constantly told. The only way to break these grooves is through new, repeated declarations. You must speak the opposite of what was once spoken, consistently, confidently, and with feeling. It is not enough to think once in a while, I want to be free, and then revert back to fear. The mind must be saturated with freedom, but through spoken law. The words of truth must be so frequent that they begin to drown out the voice of lack and resistance. This is why many spiritual teachers advise saying affirmations every hour, every morning, every night. Not because the power lies in the number, but because the frequency builds belief, and belief is what moves the invisible forces. You may not believe the affirmation at first. That is not a problem. Belief is not a requirement to begin. Repetition itself is what brings the belief. The mind hears the phrase again and again, and begins to say, if I hear this so often, it must be true. The subconscious is impressionable. It is like fertile soil. Whatever is planted repeatedly will grow. If you sow the seed of love, it will grow. If you sow fear, it will grow. But through spoken law, you choose the seed by choosing your repeated thought and speech. There is immense spiritual discipline in repeating truth. It requires patience, but through spoken law, persistence and faith in the unseen, the world may look the same at first. Your conditions may not change overnight, but through spoken law. But every word spoken in faith builds a new structure. It clears the weeds of doubt and makes way for new growth. But through spoken law, your outer world shifts in direct proportion to the consistency of your inner repetition. Most people are repeating something all day, but without awareness. They repeat complaints, doubts, criticisms, and fears. They say the same worry over and over, and then they wonder why nothing changes. But through spoken law, what they don't realize is that they are doing affirmations all the time. They're just affirming the wrong things. Repetition is always working, but through spoken law, the question is, what are you repeating? What are you programming into your mind and spirit every single day? To use repetition consciously is to take back your power. It is to saying, I no longer let random thoughts shape my life. I speak on purpose. I think on purpose. I declare truth on purpose. I speak love, not fear. I speak abundance, not lack. I speak joy, not sorrow. I do it over and over, through spoken law, until the old thought loses its grip and the new thought becomes dominant. Repetition builds a new inner environment. The mind becomes like a garden with fresh soil. Where once there were only thorns of negativity, now flowers of truth begin to bloom. You notice that you respond differently to life. You speak more gently. You feel more peace through spoken law, not because something changed outside, but because the repeated word of truth changed something within. This is not about blind optimism or ignoring difficulty. It is about choosing the vibration you wish to hold, regardless of appearance. When fear arises, you repeat, I have. When doubt comes, you say, all is working together for my highest good. When lack appears, you declare, there is no limit in divine mind. These phrases, repeated with sincerity, become your spiritual armor. They remind you of who you are. They anchor you in the truth. The mind resists at first. It will say, this isn't working. But the repetition is stronger than resistance. Through spoken law, the word of truth, spoken consistently, is like light in a dark room. You do not need to remove the darkness. You simply turn on the light, again and again, until darkness fades on its own. Each repetition is a flicker of that light. Eventually, the room is filled, but through spoken law. This is why the practice must be daily. The momentum of old thought is strong, but not stronger than your spirit. Repetition allows you to build spiritual momentum. The more you repeat truth, the more natural it feels. The more natural it feels, the more real it becomes. The more real it becomes, the more it shows up in your life. Faith is a muscle, spoken law, and repetition is the exercise that strengthens it. You do not wait to feel strong. You speak strength into being. You do not wait for the proof. You repeat the truth until proof appears. This is the work of spiritual mastery. It is not dramatic or flashy. It is quiet, steady, and powerful. One phrase spoken with intention, repeated daily, has the power to rebuild a life. This is the gift of repetition. It is the path by which the subconscious is purified. It is the practice by which belief is built. It is the way the soul remembers its divine origin. But through spoken law, you do repetition, you do not become someone new. You return to who you really are. You were always whole. You were always worthy. But through spoken law, you were always connected to the infinite. Repetition simply removes what forgot that truth. Speak only what you desire to manifest. But through spoken law, every word carries a seed of creation, and the words you speak today shape the experiences of tomorrow. Most people speak habitually, but through spoken law, not realizing that their speech is a form of command, a direction given to the creative forces of the universe. Words are never idle, but through spoken law, they are instruments of power, living vibrations that imprint themselves upon the subconscious mind and ripple out into the unseen to bring back form. Through spoken law, to speak only what you desire is to live consciously. It is to take full authority over the creative process of your life. When you speak of peace, peace begins to grow. When you speak of abundance, the channels for prosperity begin to open. When you speak of love, but through spoken law, harmony begins to flow into your relationships. But the opposite is also true. When you speak of fear, lack, struggle, and sickness, even in passing, you give life to those conditions. The law is exact and impartial. It does not judge whether your words are spoken in jest, sarcasm, frustration, or carelessness. It only knows to obey. But through spoken law, every word is a mold into which the universal substance flows. Think of your word as the blueprint and the universe as the builder. Through spoken law, if the blueprint is chaotic, filled with statements of limitation and defeat, the resulting structure will reflect that, but through spoken law. But if the blueprint is intentional, if it speaks clearly of joy, freedom, vitality, and wealth, then the outer experience will take that form. But through spoken law, it may not happen overnight, but it must happen according to law. The word is law when spoken with authority. You do not have to speak loudly or forcefully. The power is not in volume. It is in vibration. A quiet word spoken with belief has more creative energy than a loud word filled with doubt. What matters is the clarity and consistency of your speech. But through spoken law, if you truly want something, speak as though it is already yours. Say, I am healthy, even if symptoms are present. Say, I am divinely provided for, even if the bank account looks empty. Say, everything is working out for me, even if the path is unclear. But through spoken law, these are not lies. They are spiritual truths spoken into the realm of form. The world teaches people to speak what they see. But the spiritual laws respond when you speak what you want to see. The senses report appearances, but the soul knows the truth behind appearances. When you speak in alignment with your highest desire, you draw that reality closer. Through spoken law, you begin to dissolve the old forms that no longer serve and invite the new into being. This requires discipline, not fear. Spoken law. You are not to monitor every word in anxiety, but to cultivate the habit of conscious speech. When a fearful or negative word slips out, do not panic. Spoken law, simply replace it. Cancel it with a new declaration. You might say, that is not my truth. I now speak the word of peace. Through spoken law, I now speak the word of supply. I now speak the word of healing. You become the guardian of your own creative process. Spoken law not through punishment but through awareness. Some people say, I'm just being realistic, as they describe limitation and struggle, but through spoken law. But realism in the spiritual sense means aligning with what is real in divine mind, not what is temporarily appearing in form. But through spoken law, it is more realistic to speak of abundance than lack, because abundance is the natural state of the universe. Through spoken law, it is more realistic to speak of health than sickness, because life itself is wholeness-seeking expression. When you speak of what you desire, you affirm the truth that already exists in potential. Words are like seeds, and each word spoken is planted in the soil of the subconscious. The subconscious does not argue, it does not say, but through spoken law, this is good, or this is bad. It simply accepts what is impressed upon it and works night and day to bring it into form. If you say over and over, I'm always late, the subconscious ensures that your circumstances align with lateness. If you say, through spoken law, I never have enough, it will block the flow of supply to prove that statement correct. But if you say, but through spoken law, I have more than enough for all my needs, the subconscious accepts that command and begins shaping your experience to reflect it. This is not wishful thinking. It is spiritual science. The law of correspondence says that the outer reflects the inner. So if the inner is filled with declarations of lack, chaos, or unworthiness, the outer must reflect it. But when the inner is filled with words of power, gratitude, and divine truth, the outer world becomes a mirror of beauty and balance. You must train yourself to speak life, even when surrounded by death, to speak possibility, even when limitation seems to dominate. This is not denial. It is choice. You are not ignoring the facts. You are choosing the higher reality that transcends facts. Facts change. Truth does not. The truth is that you are one with infinite intelligence, and this intelligence responds to the word you speak. Through spoken law, I am statement is a declaration of identity. When you say, I am, whatever follows is a claim. It is a command sent out into the field of potential. Say, I am tired, and the body responds. Say, I am overwhelmed, and the mind shuts down. But say, I am calm, clear. I am powerful, and the body, mind, and spirit begin to align with that truth. Your I am should never be used casually. It is the name of the divine expressed through you. But through spoken law, speaking only what you desire means refusing to lend energy to what you do not wish to expand. If you do not want confusion, do not speak of it. But through spoken law, if you do not want struggle, do not give it your voice. Instead, speak clarity, speak ease, speak breakthrough. Even if your current reality contradicts your words, persist. The current reality is the echo of past words and beliefs. What you speak now determines what comes next. You are not a reporter. You are a creator. Law. You are not here to describe conditions. You are here to transform them. Every time you say something, Ask yourself, do I want more of this? If the answer is no, do not speak it. Instead, find the language that matches your vision. Find the words that match your divine inheritance. Through spoken law, find the phrase that speaks to your highest good, and speak it often. There is creative energy in every word. The tone, the intention, the belief behind it, all carry force. Words backed by feeling move swiftly. So speak with love, speak with reverence, speak with trust. Let your speech be a practice of manifestation. Let your words bless your path, call forth your desires, and remind you of your power. Through spoken law, let every word be a stepping stone to the reality you choose to live. Early affirmation aligns you with divine order. The universe functions through divine laws, precise, unwavering, and orderly. Everything in creation moves with them, the tides, the seasons, the heartbeat, the breath. There is timing and harmony embedded in every aspect of life. When you speak truth every hour, through spoken law, you are choosing to move in sync with this divine rhythm. You are not interrupting the flow, you are entering it. To affirm something once is to plant a seed. To affirm something hourly is to water it, to give it sunlight, but through spoken law, to keep it alive in consciousness until it becomes reality. Early repetition keeps your awareness on the truth, not the appearance. Through spoken law, it turns your focus away from chaos and toward divine order. This is not about controlling time or micromanaging thought. It is about attuning yourself to the spiritual pattern that is always available but often ignored. Life can be noisy. It can pull attention in 100 directions. Worry, distraction, duty, fear. The mind is quick to wander. One moment you affirm peace, but through spoken law, and the next you are caught in a swirl of anxiety. Early affirmation is the gentle discipline that calls you back, but through spoken law, it is the anchor that prevents you from drifting too far from the truth. Every hour, you return to center. Every hour, you remind yourself of who you are, but through spoken law and what you are creating. The subconscious mind receives your words as instruction. It does not rest. It receives impressions all day long, from what you see, hear, feel, and especially from what you say. The dominant impressions become your beliefs, but through spoken law, and your beliefs become your experience. When you affirm hourly, you build dominance. You ensure that the truth outweighs the lie. That faith outweighs fear. That divine order, rather than disorder, becomes the foundation of your consciousness. To affirm hourly is not superstition, but through spoken law, it is spiritual alignment. Just as a musician tunes an instrument before it can play in harmony, you must tune your inner instrument. Early affirmation is that tuning process. It adjusts your thoughts, your vibration, your focus. Through spoken law, it clears the static and allows divine inspiration to flow. You may choose one affirmation and repeat it every hour through spoken law, or you may allow the words to evolve as your needs shift. The key is not in variety, it is in sincerity. The words must be true to you, must feel alive in your heart, must carry intention. A rote phrase, spoken without awareness, has little effect. But a word of power, spoken from the soul, transforms everything it touches. Affirming hourly is also a declaration of priority. It says to the universe, this truth is important to me. This belief is my compass. This vision is more real to me than what I see with my eyes. You create time for what you value. When you affirm hourly, you are making space for spirit. You are placing spiritual reality at the top of your list, not as an afterthought but as a guiding force. Divine order is not something you must create. It already exists. It is the natural arrangement of things in perfect balance. But when you become entangled in fear, resistance, or ego, you step out of that arrangement. You experience confusion, chaos, and delay. Affirmation realigns you. It opens the channel. It reminds every level of your being, mental, emotional, physical, that harmony is the truth and anything else is a temporary illusion. The affirmation itself is like a gentle hand that turns your head toward the light. Perhaps you were looking down, lost in worry. But every hour, you speak, all is in divine order now, and the energy shifts, your heart opens. Your mind clears, but through spoken law. You are not forcing the outer to change. You are changing your perspective, and in doing so, you change your vibration. And when vibration changes, results change. You might say, but what about emergencies? What about real problems? And the answer is the same. especially in times of difficulty. Through spoken law, affirmation becomes your lifeline. Divine order is not the denial of difficulty. It is the truth that beneath the surface, but through spoken law, everything is being worked out for your highest good. When you affirm divine order, you declare that even this, even now, has purpose. Through spoken law, you shift from panic to trust, from resistance to flow. Hourly affirmation also disrupts the momentum of negative thinking. Most destructive thoughts are not one-time events. They are patterns. A person who feels anxious may replay the same fearful story every 20 minutes. A person who feels stuck may repeat the same statement of defeat several times a day. These inner loops gain energy through repetition, through spoken law, but hourly affirmation breaks that loop. It introduces a higher thought into the cycle. It cuts through the noise. It replaces the mental habit with a spiritual one. This is why timing matters. Affirm once in the morning and forget it, and the world may pull you back into its drama. But affirm every hour, and you create a new rhythm. But through spoken law, you imprint the truth again and again until it becomes the dominant vibration in your field. Your thoughts begin to follow your words through spoken law. Your feelings begin to reflect your beliefs, and your circumstances begin to reflect your alignment. There is no requirement to speak long affirmations. Even one word, said with full attention, has great power. You may say peace, order, grace, or flow. You may whisper it under your breath, write it in a journal, spoken law, or simply think it with intention. Each time you do, you bring the mind into agreement with the soul. You step out of reaction and into creation. Consistency is key. There may be days when you forget or resist. The old self may argue. The voice of fear may return, but through spoken law. But each hour gives you another chance. Each hour is a reset. The past is wiped clean. You begin again. You declare what you know to be true. Not because the world has shown it to you, but because the soul remembers it. Hourly affirmation becomes not just a habit, but a way of being. But through spoken law, it becomes the heartbeat of your spiritual practice. You are not affirming to get something. You are affirming to be something. You are affirming to remain in alignment with the divine idea that already exists in the mind of God. And as you stay aligned, the outer reflects that alignment. People change, circumstances shift, doors open. What once felt distant becomes near. What once felt tangled becomes clear. You may set a timer or use natural breaks in your day to return to your affirmation. Each hour becomes sacred through spoken law. Each hour becomes a meeting with the self. You are not waiting for life to give you permission. You are giving life instruction, but through spoken law, you are becoming the cause, not the effect. You are speaking truth into the structure of time, and time responds. Divine order flows when your inner world is orderly. Affirmation is the way you sweep the mind clean. It is how you organize thought, emotion, and belief so that they serve your highest good. When the inner is aligned, the outer must follow. Hourly repetition builds spiritual muscle. Through spoken law, it creates momentum. It lifts you when your mood otherwise sink. It holds you steady when the storm rages. It becomes your rhythm, your song, your anchor in the truth of who you are. The universe responds to conviction, not effort. In the spiritual realm, what moves mountains is not struggle, but certainty. Not force, but faith. Through spoken law, it is not how hard you push, but how completely you believe. You may try endlessly, work tirelessly, chase goal after goal, but through spoken law. But if the inner conviction is not there, if you do not truly know the outcome is already yours, then all that effort is like shouting into the wind. The universe does not reward exhaustion. It answers vibration. Conviction is the feeling of spiritual certainty, but through spoken law, it is the inner knowing that what you desire is already real in the unseen, simply waiting for the right moment to appear in the scene. Conviction speaks with authority. It does not beg, it does not negotiate, it does not waver. It says, I know, I hope. The one who is convicted does not ask, when will it happen, but declares, it is done. This declaration, but through spoken law, when truly felt, becomes the magnetic force that draws result into physical form. Effort, in the outer sense, belongs to the world of material action. Through spoken law, it has its place. But in the world of spirit, the energy that creates is subtle. It moves through belief, imagination, feeling, and most of all, through spoken certainty. When you speak your word with deep conviction, you are aligning with the creative principle itself. Through spoken law, you are not merely speaking into air. You are impressing the subconscious and calling forth divine law to arrange itself on your behalf. The subconscious does not act on weak commands. It acts on strong impressions. This is why casual, half-hearted affirmations often bear little fruit. If you spoken law, I am wealthy, but internally doubt every word, the subconscious receives confusion, not clarity, but through spoken law. But if you speak the same words with inner agreement, with emotional weight and unwavering certainty, the subconscious accepts that as law. It begins to move people, circumstances, and ideas to fulfill the command. Conviction is not loud. It does not need to shout to be heard. It may be quiet, but through spoken law, but it is unshakable. It is the quiet voice says, I know I am safe, even when appearances suggest danger. It is the silent thought, spoken law, I am provided for, even when evidence points to lack. That deep inner yes is what the universe responds to, through spoken law. The frequency of certainty cuts fear like light through darkness. Those who walk in spiritual mastery are not always those who work the hardest. They are often the ones who believe the deepest. They speak less but with more power. They act when moved by intuition, not pressure. They move with grace, not rush, because they know the true power is in alignment, not hustle, but through spoken law. They understand that the real work is internal, to build conviction so complete that the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. Conviction is a decision. It is not based on evidence, it creates evidence. When you die, something is true for you. Truly decide. The energy of that decision sets unseen forces into motion. This is why some people seem to attract success effortlessly. It is not that they are lucky or privileged in some mysterious way. It is that, consciously or unconsciously, they have accepted their good as inevitable. They do not question it. They do not fear its loss. And because of that, but through spoken law, the universe matches their belief. It is often said that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, but through spoken law. That substance is built through conviction. When you feel the outcome is certain, even before it arrives, you are living from the end. You are inhabiting the vibration of your desire fulfilled, spoken law, and because the universe responds to vibration, not words alone, it begins to arrange itself accordingly, but through spoken law. Effort without belief is like pushing a door that opens inward. You may work, plan, worry, and strive, but without inner alignment, but through spoken law, you may find that things do not move, or they move slowly and with struggle. But when you combine effort with conviction, through spoken law, when your outer actions are backed by inner knowing, everything accelerates. The right people appear. The doors swing open. The timing aligns with ease. Conviction also creates calm. The one who believes does not rush. They do not panic or chase. They act when guided, rest when needed, through spoken law, and trust that all is unfolding as it should. This inner calm is not passivity. It is power under control. It is the quiet strength that knows, what I have spoken must be fulfilled. The law cannot fail. The seed I have planted must grow. There is a spiritual energy that comes with conviction. Through spoken law, it radiates. People feel it. Opportunities are drawn to it. Conviction speaks not only through words but through posture, tone, and presence, but through spoken law. When you believe in your own value and your own destiny, you move differently. You speak with clarity. You walk with confidence, but through spoken law, you do not shrink in the face of opposition because your inner yes is louder than any external no. To cultivate conviction, spoken law, you must first listen to your inner dialogue. Do your words match your desires? Do your thoughts support your vision? Or do you speak one thing and believe another? Every time you affirm your good, do so with feeling. Do so as if it is already true, but through spoken law. Allow the emotion of completion to rise within you. Feel the relief, the joy, the gratitude of the thing already done. The subconscious responds to feeling more than repetition. Repetition builds the path, but emotion gives it speed. This is why visualization, affirmation, and inner dialogue must all work together. See it, speak it, feel it. Let the energy of your desire fulfilled become your dominant frequency. That is conviction. Not wishful thinking, but spiritual embodiment. You are not hoping. It is already yours. You are not striving. You are claiming. You are not waiting. You are preparing. Because in the unseen, it already exists. Conviction is also a practice. It is not built in a moment but over time. You reinforce it with every affirmation, every visualization, every decision to trust rather than fear. When doubt arises, and it will, you simply return to the truth. You align. You say again with clarity, I know this is mine. And over time, doubt weakens, certainty grows. This is the inner work. This is the true labor, not in pushing, striving, but through spoken law, or convincing others, but in convincing yourself. When your own heart and mind are unified, when there is no inner war, the outer must come into harmony. That is the law. That is the mystery. That is the gift of conviction.